I think I'm the best communicator on the damn planet. I think I'm articulate. I think if anybody buys that shit, you fucking batshit crazy. So, communication for me, it's really a thought process around knowing when to speak, when to shut up, what to say, and when to say it. But I can tell you, most of my life, I wasn't really good at shutting up in the right places.
Shocking.
I bet you were.
I never talked, so there was that.
Yeah, right.
I was a quiet kid. That's what happens when you grow up.
Go figure.
Yeah, that's what happens when you grow up in the world where kids shall be seen and not heard.
Yeah, that followed you into your adulthood.
Yep, so, pretty much.
I think inside of Success Champions as a whole, we've got a pretty cool culture. I think we have a lot of fun. And I know culture's more than just having fun, but I think we have a lot of fun. I think we do a lot of cool things. And I think, especially when we do big events and the likes, the overall vibe of everything we do is pretty rad.
Yeah, I can remember, looking back at all the companies I've worked for over my career, I can identify the ones that had a really great culture and that I loved working for, and the ones that were just horrible. And at the time, I didn't realize they were horrible. I just kind of assumed that's how corporate world was, and that was just the standard. And the communication thing is a big key. But then there's so many other things that go into it. How you value your employees and how you bring them in to allow them to be heard and to contribute. And that culture goes so far to make a company successful.
Did you see the same thing? And I agree with that. Do you see the same thing where the bigger the company, the worse the culture?
Yeah, I do think so. And even interesting when, because when I was at Frontier, the culture was completely horrible. And I think part of their issue was they were combining 4 different companies at the time. So they didn't know what their culture was. And everyone was kind of having the culture that they brought from their old company, but nothing was meshing. So I'm sure that didn't make it easy. But the 4 companies all had drastically different cultures. They were not similar at all.
That's tough.
But then at Nextel, they were, because they were still kind of a startup, even though they were in every major metropolitan city and were huge. It was interesting when I looked at that company, their culture varied even from team to team. So like the sales team I was on had a drastically different culture than the other sales team across the city. And which is also different from the sales team, because we had 3 teams of 12 people in Minneapolis. For the 3rd team down at the corporate headquarters, that was a completely different culture as well. So I think that manager position has a huge role to play in driving the culture and how, whether the corporate culture is going to permeate to your team or if you're going to have this completely different thing that doesn't mesh with the organization as a whole.
Yeah, I hear you. I was just going through the different companies I worked for, from a mom and pop HVAC company, to then Cardinal Health. There was a drastic change. I can tell you in Cardinal Health, man, the culture was the game of houses. You played chess and jockeyed for the next role, the next tier. I mean, it was insane how much the trying to get promoted and screw somebody else out of their role was alive in that company. And then from there to go work for a 200-person commercial printing company that was bigger than a mom and pop, but it was run and felt like a mom and pop. It was very, very, very blue collar style thing. So it felt more like a one big potluck dinner, if you will. And then
your favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a lot of people can't cook at potlucks. So
they're the ones that are asked the people that can't cook are usually asked to bring drinks or plates.
Right. Plates, napkins, yep. That kind of stuff.
Oh, can you bring the drinks? Mountain Dew, Pepsi?
And I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens to us as we grow, with the culture. We've done really good at having the right vibe. I think Champions Codes help us out a lot. I think having our big vision is helping a lot. But as we bring on more and more people, I think it's going to be interesting how we hold on to the reins of the culture and go. So I was fascinated to sit down and talk with Kim. She had such a cool perspective on, different ways communication affects culture, and even dove into you and me a little bit and had a little fun, walking us through our speaking styles. And, you know, um, she didn't do it in this one, but I just like the fact that everybody's saying you're the mean one now. That's just fun for me.
But
So,
it's so not true.
but it is. It is. So Elizabeth said it best the other day, or maybe it was last night. She said it best to me. She goes, "High D's know they're assholes. High C's don't. That's the difference. Is high D's know they're being a dick, right? High C's don't know they're being a dick because they're just that communication style's not there. They could say the same damn things, and a D's like, yeah, I'm being an asshole. The C's like, that's just a matter of fact. It's just what it is, right? And that's the difference between it all."
Is Elizabeth like our couples therapist? Because
I'm gonna tell you said that. She was
kind
saying
of how
this
it
in a
feels.
general statement, but too fucking funny. On that note, I'm kicking it over, guys. Enjoy Kim Laughlin. All right, totally stoked for this conversation. Let me tell you, it doesn't matter if we do an Ask Me Anything, we do trainings throughout the week, anywhere Kevin and I show up, this badass, she shows up with us and hangs out, and she brings some of the most killer questions, commentary. So I'm stoked to hang out with Miss Kim Laughlin as we dive into the world of communication, which is something I actually suck at. Kevin's worse at it than I am. I mean, but that's because Kevin doesn't have a personality. So we might as well just start it off
see,
on the right foot.
see what I have to put up with on a daily
I do.
basis.
I do. I do.
One of the biggest
We'll talk
feedbacks,
about
Kim,
that.
that we get is, God, Donnie picks on Kevin a lot. So I think
Uh,
is funny. So
yeah.
Kevin's actually got the first question for you, Kim,
Okay.
that he wanted to throw at you, and I thought it was a really good question from his perspective.
Okay.
So my question is, how do you give a lot of detailed information to a coworker, an employee, a client, without being condescending, uh,
hmm
when you're not actually trying to be condescending?
So a little bit of context with that is it someone that you know? Is it someone that you don't know?
It's Kevin.
Well, so I, I
I
always
thought you was asking who we were talking to, not who we're asking about.
yes,
You know,
yes,
this is I'm asking for a friend
Oh,
question
oh yeah,
from
sorry.
you.
Yeah,
yes.
asking for a
Asking for a
friend.
friend. All right. So the first thing I tell people is tell people ahead of time what you're going to do. So if I'm talking to someone new, if I'm talking to a leader and they have someone that they're like, this person keeps asking me so many questions. They need so much data. They need all that information. So for you, Kevin, I would say, you know what, Kim, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. I hope that's okay. Set the stage so that they don't have to learn it as they go. Not a lot of people want to learn as they go. We're in an immediate feedback world right now. So let them know that you're going to need a lot. And even if they don't like it, they don't have to be surprised by it and there won't be
So
frustration.
what if it's not the questions he's asking? He literally has to like give them step by step how to do something.
hmm
And from my perspective, he gets frustrated when they think he's coming across as an ass and he's just delivering information.
Again, tell them. So, for instance, I need a little bit of an example because the theoretical part I can kind of go like 18 different
So
ways.
so imagine we're launching a chapter, right?
Yeah,
There's a lot of moving parts in launching a chapter, or maybe it's
yeah,
like a territory leader that is launching a bunch. There's a lot of mechanics and moving parts,
that's right.
and so there's a lot of things he has to explain to them.
That's right.
And when they don't get it off the first bat, that's when the Kevin that I know and love, comes out.
That's right. That's right. So for someone like me, I'm a skimmer. I'm someone that doesn't look at everything. I'm going to go to Kevin if I have a technical issue when it's probably user error, right? So I know right away. I set it up because that's probably user error. It's not being self-deprecating, but it's just one of those things that I like to kind of put out there because that's what I know about myself. So Kevin, for you, I would say, okay, Kim, I'm going to go through a lot of stuff. I might be a little redundant, or I might tell you a lot of stuff you may already know, but give me the moment to go through 1 through 75, make sure that we understand
I want to
everything.
shoot myself already.
Ask questions and let them know. Ask questions as we go, because a lot of this stuff might be deep, it might not be. And if I'm going too fast, give them the permission to set up their patience. Number two, pay attention. Like for someone like me, I would need to say, okay, Kevin's okay, but I get to know you, Kevin, so I'm going to know that ahead of time. But because if we just met, that's even more important. But don't take that away, even when we do talk throughout the year. Like, remember, you know this about me. I'm going to be going through some steps. I need you to pay attention because this stuff is really, really important. And I'm going to give it to you in email. So if you do have any questions, make sure you read through that first and then give me a call if you still have questions. Walk
So
them through the whole thing.
first off, Chad, we need to isolate that little snippet of Donnie saying that he loves me, just so we have that for all perpetuity. And one thing I've learned, because this is something I've been working on, because I've been getting a lot of the technical questions, and I'm your stereotypical IT support person.
Mm-hmm.
My computer's not working. Have you plugged it in?
I promise you, I have learned that if anything's broken and I go to Kevin, I better have all my ducks in a row and say this is specifically what's broken.
Right.
Well, and it becomes because we understand there's so many different things that can break, and you get someone says the website isn't loading. Which website? We have 5. I need to know where to start it, and it's just like people thinking that.
But did you hear how he said that we have 5? That's what he's talking about.
Well, and it's like people think I can read their minds, and that's where the frustration is, because I have not developed that skill yet. I'm trying. Hopefully the radiation works at some point.
Right.
But
you have to understand. So, Kevin, I got to tell you. So it goes both ways. So you can be frustrated. You can be that person that's frustrated. But I always say, take a moment, and I call it sit, stop, inhale, and think. And what that gives you an opportunity to do is respond and not react. So you know yourself to say, I'm gonna get back to this person, and be like, oh, Kim again, and I'm saying that because it's going to happen again. And it's okay, because it happened with me 3 times. So you can say, Kim, we've talked about this. However, it's still your responsibility as the other side of that communication to give them a space to say, okay, it might be a little bit more helpful if you just tell me which website.
Yeah, and what I've started doing now when I reply, instead of just jumping right into the playing 20 questions with them, is just literally acknowledging, I'm sorry to hear that you're having issues. I know how frustrating that can be. And then, hey, I need to ask you some questions so I can make sure we can get this fixed for you, and kind of setting them up a little bit more and acknowledging that they have feelings. Don't know why.
Which Kevin doesn't.
Because I'll tell you why. Because you want to get to the result. So your why in there,
I'm a fixer. Yes.
That's right. But you're fixing it and you want to get right to the problem. I do this to my own kids. Mom, do you have, what do you need? I'll fit it in. And that's not fair to them. I have to give them the opportunity to be thoughtful of my time, right? But I'm frustrated because I have stuff to do, and that's not fair. So it goes both ways.
I love that. Well, it takes me into kind of the next one, because I think that swings right into it for me. So we're constantly innovating on a regular basis, right? We've new projects, new things going. We're always launching something new, right? So if we're trying to maintain a culture when there's a lot of growth happening, there's a lot of innovation happening. How do you maintain that culture overall when everything is moving so damn fast?
So I'm going to assume you're doing this or not. It's fine. So when I was in HR and I'm working with my clients, and that happens because you always have ideas. Okay. So I have these clients that they have that person that's like, oh, I have a great idea. And they'll say, okay, write it down. Let's put some time together for just innovative ideas. Because what we have this meeting for is to get through the agenda. Things can be fluid, and I get that. But you want to get to a result, because the person like Kevin that needs to get to the end of that spreadsheet by the end of the meeting, and you, Donnie, are like, well, oh God, we could do this, we could do that. It's up to Kevin to say, okay, that's great, but that's not what this meeting's for. Let's totally write this down.
Well, Kevin can be just as bad. The funny side about it is when I geek out, he geeks out. So
Okay, so
what
you
happens is we'll both spiral the fuck out of control.
it's
Yeah,
about
literally,
awareness.
yesterday in the meeting, Donnie was like, "Stop talking about that. We need to get this done." I'm
I
like,
actually called the meeting back.
Yeah. Well, because you're realizing is it's all about, it starts with self-awareness. It starts with self-awareness, and it can be fun because you guys know you're bouncing off each other, you're getting some good ideas, but out of practice, and it has to happen for it to get better, right? Just like you
Right.
teach everybody else, Donnie. It's like you have to fail to get to the next step. And it's not failing. It's just, okay, that's great, but just not right now. Let's get back to where we need to be for this. Because even though you're enjoying the meeting and you're having some great energy, the meeting's going to be over and you're going to go, we still don't have the KPIs that we were looking for.
For sure.
Let's meet again. And we all could do with less meetings.
the
So
the flip
it's the
side
moment.
the flip side of that question is,
Hmm.
if as we are growing our team and we're now much more dispersed across the country and people are doing their things and running
Yeah.
their territories and their cohorts for champions table and all that stuff,
Hmm.
how do we maintain a culture where innovation uh, is rewarded and that people can go out and try things in their territories and not be afraid of it failing, and that so we can keep that going, because at some point it shouldn't be just us coming up with the really cool ideas, and we want to make sure that we're getting ideas from all the badasses we bring on the team. So how do we keep that culture alive?
Yeah. So is that part of the agenda for the meetings that you have with your territory leaders? So some people are less creative than others, right? So you can say we're going to have a moment where you send those ideas for the meetings ahead of time. So what happens is I even when I meet with you guys, like I'll have something written down, but then I'll have an idea that I want to talk to you about. I'm like, stick to one thing, Kim. Stick to one thing. So you can tell these territory leaders, we're going to have this meeting, but we also want to leave an opportunity for creativity because it can't just be for us. We need to hear from you guys. To have it a little bit of a requirement to send them before the meeting or remind them, send a calendar reminder, send ideas for the meeting for, I don't know, how to innovate or whatever the case may be.
Ooh, forced
Nothing.
innovation.
I
Love
love
that.
it. Love
Yeah,
it.
You
well,
will innovate
nothing.
this month.
But just tell
Oh,
them it's a brainstorm. It doesn't matter how silly or maybe not so silly it is. Just send it in. Let's throw it out on the table and see how it goes. But when they forget and they're in the meeting and they're like, oh, I should have brought that, it's just going to be forced, obligatory words. It's really not going to matter, and it helps them organize.
no. You said a statement somewhere on LinkedIn. I agree with this statement, but I want you to speak to it a little bit. It
Okay.
says, you said you are not a leader until you produce another leader who can produce another leader. Talk to me about
Yes.
that.
Okay. So it has to be what I've seen in my own profession and I've seen with my clients. It's not so much producing, but opening your mind to my team. How can I help them grow at all times? At all times. And it can be tactical stuff. That's the easier part. The people part is what are you doing for them to help them grow? So they might not be a leader in your organization, but you're growing them and helping them make decisions and be empathetic to everybody else and understand what it takes to lead a team or yourself so that if they do decide to go somewhere else, but they have those skills with them. So
So,
as a leader, you should be giving someone the opportunity to take your job at any given time. And that's really scary for a lot of
no, and I love that. I'm going to add on to my question. So, we tend
people.
to get people who have some natural talents towards leadership. I think leaders
Okay.
are created, right? But there are some things in the
Hmm.
DNA that make people better leaders than others. Um, how do you take people who are of achiever kind of mindset, are already doing badass things, and get them to be a leader in your culture? Because they're going to have
Okay.
their own achievement styles, they're going to have their own leadership styles and the likes. How does that fit into your overall culture? How do you get them on the same page? Because we tend to get some really strong
Okay.
personalities.
Hmm.
And for me, I'm like, fucking just do it this way, which I know is not the proper way of doing it. But that's where
Yeah.
my head always goes.
So my question to someone would be, and to you would be, are you looking at the achieving of the tactical piece of their job? that they're really good at what they do. They're good at getting people motivated to get the production done? Or are they good because they're the person that makes the people want to go to work on Monday because they're good to be with? They like working with them. I said this and I got 2 clients from a seminar. I said, look, people can love what they do. People go to school forever to be a doctor, let's say. If they go to work and they can't stand the person they work for or whom they work with, they will look for a job any given day. But if they love who they work with, and nothing wrong with digging ditches, but they will dig ditches and not necessarily love what they do, but they'll go to work because they like who they are with. So I'm going to I don't like to ask questions with questions, but I like to kind of dig a little bit deeper. Where are you looking at those leadership skills? Is it, a lot of people are very good at production. That doesn't mean they're good at people. And sometimes they're good at both. And that's where
I
you
think
have to
it's
really
case
dig.
by case
Yeah, it is.
because
Absolutely is.
some people are, because of their presence, people want to be around them. Others
Yes,
are more technical in nature, so they're good at what
hmm,
they do. Now, it doesn't always translate over to our world because sometimes
that's
people
right.
show you the good side, until shit hits the fan, and then you see meet who they really are. Um,
Well,
so
I gotta be honest. I mean, there are different personality communication styles that I work
right.
with, and I dig into that. But there are some people that are naturally like, can you just give me what I need to do? Give me all the details that I need to do, Kevin, and let me just leave me alone and let me go get it done for you. But you have to give me the space to ask the questions. And he might be really good at what he does, but he doesn't want to lead people, and that's okay because you might think he's a good leader. I don't pick on Kevin for a second, but Kevin
Oh,
doesn't
I do all the time. It's
want to
fine.
be. He doesn't want to lead people. I can't tell you how many times in HR people would come up to me and said they're really really good. They've been here forever and they're great what they do, and we need to put them in a management role. I'm like, "Mm, no, I don't think that's a good place to go. And this is why, because the people part will ruin it all, and then it will ruin the job for the person that you just promoted. Because what are you going to do? Demote them back to a job that they were doing before that they loved? Because they saw the money. So there are so many facets in there. So that's where I kind of pull back and say, what is the leadership skill you're looking for? Is it to get a good team going? Is it to make people feel special to a degree? Is it making people want to come to work because they like the people they work with? Or can be skilled enough to handle the issues that come across with the people that they work with? And that
Yeah,
can be hard
that's
too.
that people that you work with is a key thing.
Mhm.
When I was doing the sales consulting and going in and work rehabbing sales programs, and I follow stats on why salespeople would leave companies, and I had to keep reminding my clients that one, your salespeople, even though they just started working for you, they are still in the job search world and they are
Yes,
still looking, because the number one reason people leave a company as a salesperson isn't the pay; it's that they don't like their manager and they
that's
can't
right.
work with their manager and they don't feel that they're giving what they need to be successful, so they'll go somewhere else for a better manager,
That's
and
right.
even taking a little pay cut. So that
Mhm.
people thing is huge.
It is, and I mean, even in the sales piece is even more prevalent, and it glows a little bit brighter. And the reason why I say that is, in sales, you can the harder you work, the more money you make. In some positions, you're going to make, let's just use $1,000 a week, regardless of how many hours you put in, your salary. That's what you're going to get, and that's where it really comes into play. But with sales, it's like I can make my I have some control over my income and I'm still leaving. And that's where I go, red flag. Let's figure this out. The next step is talking to the managers and getting some accountability there. And that's where the rubber meets the road. It's where the
Well,
rubber meets the road.
and you said something on another post that, I feel like you'd shoved a knife right in my gut, but it was something along the lines of, if you encourage feedback and get none, there's a trust issue, right?
Yes.
Because I try and tell people as often as possible, give me feedback, tell me how I can do better. Some people, they'll give it to me readily, but I think en masse, people don't want to approach me to give me that feedback.
You're scary.
Is
Well, there's two
to some
sides to that.
people, to some people.
Not to
Um,
placate you here with this, but you're also dealing with other people's insecurities of maybe they're a
for sure,
people
for
pleaser and
sure.
they're like, Johnny, I know you're probably really busy. You're like, really? Because do you know my schedule? Right. So when people say, I'm sure you're busy, that's when I know I'm dealing with someone that is a people pleaser. because I'll
That's
say,
a
you don't
great
know.
insight.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
You
that's a great
don't know.
insight that I hadn't thought about.
Yeah. And so you kind of have to turn it a little bit around where either they don't trust you enough because they don't know you enough. You're a bigger personality than them and they don't know how to lean into that.
Wait, I'm a
Um,
big personality? Nah.
a little bit, just a little bit, if I had to say, a little bit. But it's not always you. So that the trust is, do they not trust you enough because they don't trust themselves enough to be
Well,
able to be honest with someone?
having interacted with a few other founders of big organizations, I think part of it is it's still on the member or the people as well. Because I think a lot of times they look at the founder of an organization and think that they had some giant master plan and that things are going
Yeah.
a certain way, and it's
Right.
because they want it a certain way. So they don't want to be that person who comes up and tells the founder that, oh, you're doing this is wrong and this isn't working.
Right. So I would encourage that person that would say this is wrong. Be like, maybe you could suggest something if you're really that insecure. But I still feel like the weight is really on the shoulders of that leader. You can say all the time that you have an open door policy, but no one comes in. And I'm dealing with this with a client right now. They don't trust yet. So you need to go out there and say, hey, listen, you guys good? You're good. You're good. You're good. It's not their personality to do that. So they have just as much learning and fixing over years of it being that way. You're running from the dragon when that happens, and you need to give it time. You need to give it time, but
Yeah,
you have
because
to keep encouraging and be sincere because people know.
that I 100% agree with. I think sometimes the frustration for me comes from is you want to be around achievers. I want to be around achievers, right? So I want to be around people that are innovating, coming in with their own ideas. I don't always want to be the idea guy. Kevin doesn't always want to be the idea guy, right? So when you see natural talent inside of people and they're not utilizing it, it's like, all right, dude, get off your ass. Let's do this. You've got it. Why aren't you going?
Hmm.
When you got to come back and pick them up, there's a huge frustration in why aren't they stepping up in the first place? And is that
Yeah.
feedback, fear? I mean, I know we're dealing with insecurities on top of that.
But you're also dealing with your own impatience with that because you're asking someone to do something.
I'm not impatient, Kim.
Not well, let's pretend you are. Oh
That's
my
the biggest
goodness.
lie I've ever heard on this show.
You got to keep encouraging people because I can be a certain way with my family, and when I'm not that way, they're like, "Did you have a glass of wine, mom?" And I'm like, "Oh." You get slammed when you're trying to do the right thing. I'm like, "No," but they have a right to feel that way because that's what I was perceived as for so long. I was the person that
Right.
got things done, just don't ask questions. And so it really does come down to it's a two-way street. But typically, the leader needs to pave the road first, and you have to be patient. You have to have a ton of patience with people because they don't know, and you have to give them what they need per their personality. And the only way to do that is to get to know every single person that work for you and that need to produce for you, that you have to answer for. And people say, I don't have the time for that. And my question to them is, if it was a matter of life and death, would you do it? And they said, well, yeah. I go, so you're not making the time that you need to. You can't afford not to do that with your team. You got to do it. You're going to lose people. I selfishly didn't want to recruit people that left that shouldn't have left. It used to frustrate me. It used to drive me crazy. It's a lot of work, but
Right.
I
it's
think
unnecessary.
you another key step to getting feedback from either members of an organization or employees is giving them multiple ways to give that feedback.
Yeah.
Some people are going to be completely fine walking into your office and saying, Donnie, this is fucked up. Other people would never in their life imagine doing that.
Right.
But giving them
Slackers.
an opportunity to do feedback through, and this is popping in my
Anonymity.
head, an anonymous survey
Yeah.
for, for our group leadership teams. Hey, members, we would love to hear what your feedback on your leadership teams are. Here's some questions, and not making them give us a name.
And
But
so a
we
lot
know
of
that
people
it's
might
from
say,
this
I
group.
want to know who it is. And it's like, why does it matter?
Yeah.
You want to know who it is because you're
because of your own
probably going to be like, oh,
insecurities.
it's Kim again. Right.
Yeah.
So when I used to get the three principals in the company that I worked for, I would be like, it's got to be anonymous. And they're like, nope, nope. And I'm like, you're never going to get the feedback because they don't trust.
Yep.
It stinks to hear that, but that's the case. So when they did, I would always say, this isn't a forum for complaint. It's just an opportunity for you to suggest better things, things that haven't been working, things that have been working. But if you were to talk to that person face to face, how would you say it and write it that way to keep them from getting behind a keyboard? People get very brave if they
One
know.
of the sorry, that
I
just
don't
made
know. That's
me
okay. But anonymity works, but you can phase that out as trust builds.
that just made me think of something we did in the military. When we after any training exercise or event, we always do after action reviews. So what was supposed to happen, what actually happened, and then talk about what went well and what didn't go well. One of the rules for the what didn't go well was you couldn't just bitch and moan. You had to say, well, this didn't work. Here's what we could have done better. Here's how we could have fixed that. So they had to come with a solution for how to fix that issue. And this was this is for 17, 18-year-old kids that had to now think about, all right, so how would I have done it better to make them start thinking about it in a leadership role?
Yeah.
And I think that really is a key thing to keep it from, those open forum conversations from delving into a bitch session where people are just complaining and everyone's feeding off of their negativity. Now it just becomes this really horrible event that didn't actually.
And I say ahead of time, I'll say, anything that's, off the cuff, unprofessional, it's not going to be considered, because you need to take, it's your responsibility as well to think about what you want to say and have it be received well. You can still say the same thing. People go, what am I going to write? It's like, because you're already thinking, you just want to tell them they're jerks. And you don't know how to do that. So that's not what we want to do. We want to get to at the end, we want to get results. What results would you like to see?
You're not supposed to call me names.
I'm sorry, asshole. What?
Oh, God.
So I'm pretty sure Kim's taking notes of all the things she's going to coach me on later. So, too fun. My last question. This is kind of a funny one. As we get ready to wrap this up, is there's a guy like Gary Vee. Okay,
yes.
Gary Vee. I think on a real level, it's probably an ass. I bet he's probably tough to work for because he's such a high demand of himself. And oftentimes those guys can be very difficult to be around if you're not a high demand of yourself type person.
Mm-hmm.
So how, because like a lot of his content right now is be nice, be nice, be nice. Corporate should be nice. And I just don't believe that he's always that nice of a guy. Right.
Maybe.
So my question is if you're of that kind of more driven mindset, and I think I'm a pretty nice dude, how do you stay nice when you're making demands of yourself and you really need everybody around you to run at least 75% of the speed that I'm running at?
That's an easy question to answer. Expectation, expectation, expectation. Make sure that they expect. So I'm sure, I don't know. Well, actually, I don't know. But I'm willing that they do a lot of intentional hiring for those types of personalities, whether it's the person that's, coding in the back or the marketing person in the front that's, client facing, whatever the case may be. They hire very intentionally. And that's another thing I work with my clients where you need to hire very intentionally. It's not just a warm body. You'll lose so much money. So when you work with folks and your intensity is up here and you want to hire people that can work at that level, you hire very intentionally. Or the people that you're already around, you let them know that. But you also have to be, if they're already there, you need to be open to the way they communicate as well. And if they're not on board with your organization, with the way you want to achieve things, then they can make a decision to stay or leave. But they have to perform at the level of which you expect them to. And you always there shouldn't be any surprises. And having that conversation, so people, they slack, there's performance evaluations that aren't being done, or you run a team and you're just like, oh, that's just Donnie, it might be just Donnie, but you have to make sure that, he also levels out with the rest of the team as well. Again, it's a two-way street.
Love that. There's no leveling out with me though. It's just, you get what
we'll
you get.
Work on it.
Kevin, any last thoughts for you?
No, and I think it's not necessarily leveling out for you. It's just you keep leveling up.
Oh, I agree with that. And I'm constantly self-aware enough to know that I have to remember who I'm talking to, and meet them
Yeah,
on their level somewhat.
true, but as long as you let them know who you are, what you do. I mean, I'm working with you because I'm expecting certain things. I had to make that decision because of the expectation, and I'm okay with that. So there are no there are the only surprises are things that are going to be beneficial to me. So it's there's no easy cookie cutter way to do it, but you have to put yourself in. You have to lean into that conversation. And Kevin, you might just have to be a little nice when asking some questions about things that Kim did wrong and not make her cry.
Well, and I'll never make you cry. My goal is to make
I
Donnie
don't know
cry.
about that.
Uh,
Yeah, good luck.
I
um,
tease.
but no, it's the
Hey, if
with
you
the
want to make me cry, just give me to tell a story about my wife, and it's over,
I
right?
know that's so sweet.
for Donnie, the one of the expectations for the people on the team is that they continually be working on themselves and trying to level up to keep up with him.
Yes.
But that was a big uh, issue for us in general because you know people don't work on themselves the same. So we had to have that discussion about what does Kevin working on himself actually look like,
That's
and
right.
Nobody knows.
how that is different from how Donnie works on himself, because we were both
Mhm.
really frustrated
I
with each
and,
other.
and in all seriousness, Kim, it literally took Elizabeth going, dude, you can't expect him to do things the way you do. You're literally trying to tell him how to live at this point.
The micromanaging piece to getting to right. So, eh, like anything else, you don't want to be around people that do what you do, unless you need more people that do what you do. You
For
you
sure.
guys are a great balance, but it also comes with frustration, and that's the hard part. People are just like, and they get mad, and then they hold grudges, and but see, the beautiful part is that you do know that you do realize that, and yes, there's going to be frustration, but it's up to you to either work through it and move forward, or bail. And
All right, fuck it,
two
Kevin. I'm
talents
out.
but the two talents on polar opposites is what actually makes something very, very productive.
Yeah,
It's
agreed.
counterintuitive
Agreed.
to a lot of people.
Kim, this was awesome. I knew it would be a fun conversation. Love hanging out with you. Love having you around. How do people find you and get in touch with you?
You can go on my website at culturalapexcoach.com and click on Let's Chat, or you can email me at kim@culturalapex.com.
Awesome. If you guys are working on culture communication, Kim is your gal. She's one of the badasses inside the Success Champion family of companies. So thank you again for being on here, girl. Really,
You're
really
most
appreciate
welcome.
you.
My pleasure.
All right. That was a lot of fun. Kim's just such a cool chick, man. I always enjoy talking to her.
Well, and it's really cool because she always shows up to all of our stuff and
Yeah.
she brings really good questions and she always wants to dive in and really get to how things should work and what to do. And so it's really fun always to talk to her. So I was
Well,
excited we got to have her on.
yeah. I, to that point, I love the fact that she comes with specific questions she wants gets answered. I think most people show up to either trainings or maybe an AMA or anything, and they're just hoping to take a lot of notes. And I think it's such the wrong way to go attend to do something. You should go there with a purpose in play. You should go there and try and get a specific answer to a question that you've been trying to figure out.
Exactly.
And she does that really, really, really well. Guys, make sure you go follow all her stuff. Make sure you dive into her world. And if you are working on communication, you're working on culture, man, reach out to her. She's a beast. If you got anything out of this one, any tips or tricks, do us a favor, please make sure you're subscribed. Leave us a 5-star review and share this out with any person that you know would find value with this, because the more that you share others, the more we get to touch the world and help them with all of our messages. So as always, love you, mean it. See you, bye.